Well, good morning. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Please. All right. Thank you. I know you just want to stretch after Rob's long talk, but he did mention 2 new baseball stadiums and a new indoor stadium. He didn't mention the record of our baseball teams this year or one of the 2 football teams that we have in the local area, but nevertheless, we're just getting ready to have a great year next year. I wanted to welcome all of you. You come from all across the United States and from 14 different countries around the world. So welcome to New York City. Enjoy your stay. While you're here taking the sights in all 5 boroughs, not just Brooklyn, but all 5 boroughs. This, as a matter of fact, is one of my 5 favorite boroughs. I learned that very early in my career. But seriously, Brooklyn is perhaps the hottest part of New York. A very big part of the jobs that we've created are outside of Manhattan, which would never happen before. When you talk to people, where you're staying, it's at a hotel I've never heard of, generally in Brooklyn or Queens, and now starting to be in Staten Island and the Bronx, not just in Manhattan. Where'd you have dinner last night? Invariably a neighborhood, I can't remember where it is, and I've certainly never heard of the restaurant before, and so when I try to go 2 days later, I can't get a reservation. But that's what's happening throughout the city. Places where nobody expected commerce or people to want to live have become very hot neighborhoods. And from around the world, when I talk to people, oh, I have a daughter or a son living in New York. Great, where do they live? It is not in the Upper East Side where I've always lived. It is someplace in Brooklyn or Queens or the Bronx or Staten Island that I know nobody who lives there. And it just keeps changing and changing and changing. While you're here, let me ask you to do one favor for me and for the city, and that is spend a lot of money. We need the extra sales tax revenue. Somehow or other, Rob Walsh expects to get paid at the end of the month, and that's how we're going to do it. When you go around the city, seriously, you will see that our economy actually is pretty strong and growing. Over the past 12 years, despite 2 deep national recessions, we've gained something like 400,000 new private sector jobs, and the majority of those created outside of the central business district, which is really Manhattan. The employment growth outside of Manhattan has played an especially big role in our recovery from the last national recession. We've regained something like 300% of the jobs that we lost during the recession. And if you compare that to what America has done, the country as a whole has recovered less than 80% of the jobs lost. So we really are on a roll. We have more private sector jobs in our city now than we've ever had before. And our population is a record high. The number of tourists coming here is a record high. The number of kids who want to go to public schools is at a record high. Life expectancy is at a record high. The metrics actually are pretty good. These results just don't happen. They are the result of an awful lot of work and vision. We have 280,000 employees who work for New York City. And they're the ones that come up with the ideas. They're the ones that deliver the services. And the product is a clear vision and a dedication to do what's right for the people. Our vision is built on the 3 elements, actually, that this conference is stressing: people, places, and partnerships. So let me just spend a couple minutes talking about each of those. I'll start with perhaps the most important ingredient in any recipe for success, whether it's in the public world or the private world, and that is people. Hardworking, dedicated people like Rob Walsh. Not quite 12 years ago, I asked him to head up what was then called the city's Department of Business Services. And when he said yes, I gave him the same advice that I offer all the top members of our team in City Hall. Welcome aboard. Don't screw it up. Or actually words to that effect. You would. Well, to say that he hasn't screwed it up would be a huge understatement, because over the last 12 years, seriously, Rob and his team at what is now called the Department of Small Business Services have practically written the book on great neighborhood economic development. For example, thanks to Rob's leadership, we took over an anemic city job training and job placement program and turned it into a national model of success. We have succeeded in reviving retail corridors in lower-income communities across the city by making them safer and more attractive places to shop. Rob leads a great team, and together with Bob Steele, our Deputy Mayor for Economic Development, they are creating jobs in communities across the city. They're also working together on the second element of our success, and that is giving New Yorkers and visitors like you great places all over town to stroll, to bicycle, to shop, and to enjoy city life. Yesterday, all of you were at what we New Yorkers modestly call the crossroads of the world, Times Square. It is the most prominent example of the places in our city that we've reimagined and reinvented for greater public use. 4 years ago, we took the controversial step of closing the major roadway through Times Square Broadway to auto traffic. And the result, traffic in the entire area now actually moves more smoothly. Pedestrians who were once crammed for space and constantly got hit by cars are far safer, and people can rest in lawn chairs right out on Broadway or stroll through areas without worrying about traffic. And that's not only far more relaxing and pleasant, it also translates into major economic benefits. Since 2009, rents for street-level stores along the new Times Square Plaza have actually doubled despite the pressures of the national recession. And in fact, with $110 billion in annual retail activity, Times Square was recently, for the first time ever, named one of the top 10 retail locations anywhere in the world. And I will never forget when my commissioner for the Department of Transportation came to see me, and she suggested that we close Broadway to traffic. My first instinct was, huh? When I told my staff we were going to do it after I listened to her carefully and she made a lot of sense, they thought that I should be incarcerated or certainly get outside psychiatric help. The press was mildly skeptical, if screaming headlines can be described as mild. Everybody was opposed to it, and today I don't think there's anybody that would roll it back. In fact, just like a lot of things that we've done, progress never comes easy. People are comfortable with what they have, and anything new is worrisome and has potential risks that, while they want the benefits, they're not particularly interested in bearing those risks. Another good example would be bicycles, rental bicycles. We have a program sponsored by Citibank, which has been off the chart successful, but some of the papers were screaming that it was going to be the end of the world as we knew it if we put it in. Even the conservative press that I tried to explain to them it was the first new method of transportation that came without any federal, state, or city subsidies. You would think they would have liked that. They did not. Today, all the reporters and even the publishers ride the bicycles. So anyways, Times Square is not an isolated story. Far from it. You can go to Pearl Street near downtown Brooklyn. We gave local businesses there a huge boost, an increase in sales of something like 170% when we turned an underused parking lot into a pedestrian plaza. In other parts of the city, we put in protected bike lanes, and local businesses in those neighborhoods have gone up nearly 50%. The merchants screamed, oh, if you have bicycle lanes, nobody can stop and jump out of the car and shop. Well, in most of these cases, we didn't allow you to stop your car and jump out and shop. So you weren't exactly losing anything. That was a small, inconvenient fact that never got mentioned in the screaming headlines. But the truth of the matter is, the more you make a neighborhood friendly, the better it is for the people that live there, the people that visit, and for the merchants in those locations. And if you look across the city, store vacancies along streets and squares that we've reconfigured really has plummeted. And one of our great problems is lots of neighborhoods want us to close the streets to automobile traffic and turn them into pedestrian malls. But unfortunately, we still need to have streets open for trucks, for buses, and for cars. And so it's a fine balance. Where we can do it, absolutely going to do it. But where there's no alternative places for the cars, trucks, and buses to go, we just cannot do that. We're also taking actions now that in the years to come, where we think turn long abandoned and even derelict places in our city into vibrant new spaces that will also fuel economic revival. If you go up to the Bronx and take a look, there's a massive building called the Kingsbridge Armory. It's been vacant since the mid-90s, and working with community leaders, we have finally, after lots and lots of false starts, come up with a plan to convert it into the world's largest indoor skating facility. And that one thing will breathe new life into a whole part of the Bronx. The Bronx is an interesting case. If you take a look at the Bronx, you can see its future. Its future was as the epicenter of crime, as the national, symbol of falling apart, and people leaving, and of crime. And if you remember Howard Cosell during a Yankees game, the cameras focused on outside of Yankee Stadium, and you could see smoke coming up from burning buildings, and he said the Bronx is burning. Well, today the Bronx isn't burning, the Bronx is building, and comparison I heard the other day, which put a big smile on my face, the Bronx, as if it were a separate city, it has a population equivalent to Dallas, Texas's. Now, Dallas, Texas is a wonderful city. I have friends there. I used to go there a lot. And the Texans are very proud of their environment and what they've done, and they should be, except that Dallas, Texas has 3 times the murder rate of the Bronx today. And it just tells you what's happened to New York City and the Bronx. When crime goes away, people go out on the streets. When people go out on the streets, as I've said before, economic activity starts and people are willing to pay for amenities, and you get this virtual cycle of things getting better and better. On Staten Island, another place that most people don't think about when they think about New York City, but it is a wonderful residential island. If it were a separate city, it'd probably be the 12th largest city in the country. There is a site there. It was a former U.S. Navy facility called the Home Port. It's been closed for 20 years, and there have been nearly 20 years of false starts and dashed hopes about redeveloping it. Well, finally, we're moving ahead, and construction has started on that site to build 900 new apartments and 30,000 square feet of new retail space, and it's the first step in what we expect to be $1 billion in new private investment along Staten Island's North Shore. Lower Manhattan, part of Manhattan, the Gold Coast, except this is a part that had been left out for a long time. There is an enormous area called the Seward Park Urban Renewal Area. It has lain vacant, it's probably 15 square blocks, since 1967, when the government demolished the housing there, and at that time they promised community revitalization. For decades, that was an empty promise, but not anymore. We're now ready to go with a $1.1 billion project that will bring a mix of new housing, new retail space, and most of it for small businesses, incidentally, and new open space and other amenities, all of them highly popular with the neighborhood. It took a long time to get everybody on the same page, but I think everybody, after they had this say, looked around and said, we've got to be able to do better than this. And in fact, we pulled together and are doing that. I think the list could go on because we're doing like that in projects like those in neighborhoods all across New York. We're creating new places for people to shop, enjoy, get medical care, go to school. But let me mention the third factor, and that is that along with people and places, the third factor for our success is partnerships. None of this would have been done without partnerships. All across our city, our key partners in building strong local economies are 67 business improvement districts, or these BIDs as we call them. These BIDs are business associations that every year collectively invest more than $100 million in their neighborhoods. And over the past 12 years, we've increased the number of bids in our city by more than 50%, most of them in commercial corridors, as Rob pointed out, outside of Manhattan. And under Rob's leadership, the Department of Small Business Services has made it easier for bids to form and expand, to increase their budgets, to get the skills and services they need, and to take on long-term debt for improvement projects. Rob's team has also encouraged bids to get creative, to go beyond the basics of security and sanitation. And it's really clear if you look around the city, the bids have responded with programs that do everything from helping spruce up neighborhood storefronts to showing free outdoor summer movies, creating interactive public art, anything to get the public out on the streets and enjoying their neighborhood. And the secret to crime fighting, the secret to economic development, really is getting people out there. When people are there, the bad guys go away, and the good guys start to invest. That's just a number of ideas that we have that will add zest to our city life. They are built, as I've said, on people, places, and partnerships that can succeed, we think, in any city, including wherever you call home. It's true that every city is different, but we all face the same kind of challenges, and we all have a lot to learn from each other. People basically are the same. They want to be safe. They want to have good schools for their kids. They want to be able to shop, have a lot of services to pick from, and they want to be able to get medical care and have fun. And you can do all of that if you just pull everybody together. I think we've demonstrated that. Our administration is going away, and I think it's 84 days, but who's counting? And my hope is that the next administration will take what we've done, and you will get here together again in a few years and look back and say, oh, that Bloomberg administration, yeah, they may have set the ground, but look how far we've come since then. I plan to live in the city for the rest of my life. My kids, I assume, will as well. It's a wonderful place. And I'll leave you with one thought for those of you that come from outside of New York City. When you walk the streets of our city, 40% of the people that you see who live here were born outside of the United States. This is a city of immigrants. This is a city that is phenomenally diverse. And our diversity is different than other big cities. In other cities, they basically live as a mosaic. There are neighborhoods dedicated to specific economics, orientation, or nationalities, whatever. In New York City, we live much more as a mixture. And so you will see the diversity of the city when you get in line for a cup of coffee at Starbucks, or to buy a newspaper, or go down the steps to the subway. You'll see that diversity in the stores. Look at, as you go down the street, the signs on stores. You can go, particularly in Queens, in one neighborhood, see store signs in 5 different languages. That really is unique, and it's one of the reasons New York has done so well. So enjoy, thank you, and you're welcome to plagiarize all of our ideas.